If you've ever wanted to make your Tinkercad projects easier to edit, more flexible, and way faster to update, then learning how to use variables is one of the best skills you can pick up. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use variables in Tinkercad, step by step, both for Codeblocks in 3D design and for the code editor in circuits. This is a really useful feature because instead of changing the same number over and over again, you can change one variable and update your whole project instantly. If this tutorial helps you out, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more Tinkercad tips and beginner-friendly tutorials. Now, let's get started. First, let's look at variables in Tinkercad Codeblocks for 3D design. This is the best option if you want to build parametric models, which means your design can change automatically based on a value you set. So if you make something like a box, a stand, a holder, or a custom part, variables can save you a lot of time. To begin, open Tinkercad and go into the Codeblocks workspace for 3D design. Once you're inside, look at the Blocks menu on the left side of the screen. Find the Math category, which is usually shown in purple. Inside that section, you'll see the option to create a variable. Drag the Create Variable block to the top of your script. This is important because the variable should be defined before you use it in your model. After placing it, click on the default name, which is usually something generic like item, and rename it to something meaningful. For example, you could call it width, height, radius, or length, depending on what your design needs. Then set the value you want. For example, if you're making a box, you might set width to 20. If you're making a circular object, you might use radius instead. Now that your variable is created, the next step is to apply it to a shape. Drag in a shape block, such as a box or cylinder. Then go back to your Math section and find the variable block that matches the name you created. Drag that variable block into the dimension slots of your shape, such as width, length, height, or diameter. This tells Tinkercad to use the variable value instead of a fixed number. So instead of manually typing 20 into every shape, you can link the shape directly to your variable. That means if you go back and change the value in the Create Variable block, all connected shapes will update automatically. This is the big advantage of using variables in Codeblocks. It makes your design fully editable and much easier to test different sizes. For example, if you're designing a phone stand and want to try a wider base, you only need to change one value. If you're creating a custom holder and want to adjust the depth, you can do it instantly without rebuilding the whole project. Once everything is connected, hit play or run the script and watch your design update based on the variable. If the shape is too large or too small, just adjust the number at the top and run it again. That's why variables are so powerful for 3D design. They help you create reusable, scalable models that are much easier to refine. Now let's move on to using variables in Tinkercad circuits, where the process is a little different. If you're working on an Arduino or microbit project, variables help you store values like sensor readings, pin numbers, or temporary data in your program. In Blocks mode, start by opening the Variables category, which is usually pink. Click Create Variable and give it a name that matches what you want it to store. For example, if you're reading a sensor, you might name it Sensor Value. If you're controlling an LED, you might name something LED Pin. After creating the variable, you'll see a Set Variable to 0 block. Use this block whenever you want to update the value. Then when you need to use that value later, drag out the small oval variable block. This reads the current value stored in the variable. So for example, if your sensor is detecting light levels, you could store that reading in sensor value and then use it in your logic or output conditions. This makes your circuit code cleaner and easier to understand, especially as your project gets more advanced. If you want even more control, you can switch from Blocks mode to Text mode using the Code dropdown. In Text mode, Tinkercad lets you write code in C++. Here, you can declare your variable at the top of the program. For example, you might write int LED pin equals 13. This creates a variable called LED pin and assigns it to pin 13. Then, instead of writing 13 everywhere in your code, you can simply use LED pin in your functions. For example, you might write digital write LED pin, high. This is a great habit because if you ever change the pin later, you only need to update it in one place. That reduces mistakes and makes your code easier to maintain. Whether you're using Codeblocks for 3D design or the circuit code editor for electronics, the main idea is the same. Variables help you keep your work organized, flexible, and easy to edit. In Codeblocks, variables help you make parametric 3D models. In circuits, variables help you store and reuse values in your code. So if you're just getting started, try creating one simple variable in each area and experimenting with it. Change the value, run the project, and see how everything updates. That hands-on practice is the fastest way to understand how variables work in Tinkercad. And if this video helped you learn something new, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more easy software tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.